Burrows, and I'm going to be presenting our own studio at 345 Swan Street in Richmond. And our studio sits on Wurundjeri land, and we want to pay our respects to the traditional owners of this land. In particular, this is a place where we listen, learn and make. And why did we move our studio to 345 Swan Street? We were in the city, our building was being redeveloped, and we needed to find a new home, and this is what we found. A modernist warehouse that had become a second-hand building supply store full of stuff and gunk, fairly derelict on the rear, but with some opportunities for further expansion. We explored multiple ideas, and one was a complete new rebuild. But once we stripped everything back, we really started to see the fantastic quality of spaces that existed within the sawtooth roof, and thought this could become a fantastic genesis for a studio. So, to keep the journey simple, respect the existing form, take away as little as possible. Add at the rear a new two-storey mezzanine studio and a second storey along the western side. And then once we've done that, activate the edges, give back to the street, make an energising presence within the street form. The existing plan really gave us a lot of clues to the layout. Services and smaller rooms were on the western side. And once we cleared out the intervening walls, there was this large, fantastic open plan workspace, and that really became the main platform for working in. And then on upper levels, we had our kitchen, social spaces, terraces, and libraries, etc., etc. And in the front left-hand corner, a small cafe, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. So the elevations of the building, simple, modernist, respecting the history of the site. But the beauty of the sawtooth roof meant that it let in ample daylight. This is a beautiful lights-filled space. And so it means that we don't need enormous amounts of lighting, but it's also all facing north. So we managed to put a 57 kilowatt solar farm on the roof. We're fully electric. We're a climate certified office. We generate over 50% of the consumption that we have, and we also use our batteries to charge Sparky, our electric office car. But it is also about adaptive reuse, how much we could retain from the existing building. There's already embodied carbon within those elements, but also if we ever did redevelop the site, how might we be able to reuse elements and reapply elements through time. Being an office, you're mindful that things change over time, so we explored multiple layouts. We didn't know how the first, second or third iteration would go, and so we're really conscious of how we could plan the spaces differently and what would then help us do that. So we came up with the idea of a workstation module, almost like a flat pack, which you could assemble and reassemble and pull apart and reorientate as you needed to. And here's a little prototype we made in our city studio out of MDF and laminate, just testing sitting and standing desks, and it's generally getting a thumbs up from the team. But we really brought the team into the process as well. We came down on site, we showed them plans of what we were doing. We had workshops within the office, so it was a really inclusive process to come to the final outcome. I noticed this land at the rear, and this was an opportunity for some new addition and scale, and this is the steel fabrication. Steel frame going up in place, all bolted together so it could be reused later on. Construction really reinforced in our minds this had to be about its raw, simple industrial honesty. Like all good architect-led projects, there was no details. They were all worked out on site, on studs with the builders. And we really delighted in the joy of the colours of the LVL rafters and the studs. That gave us a layer of joy and delight with us having to contrive any further colours. And quietly we started putting posters up, starting to communicate with the suburb beyond that something new was coming here. As I mentioned before, the material palette was really trying to respect the industrial qualities of the space. Simple and light-filled. A hardwood floor gave us cues to hardwood wall linings. The quirk and the colours from the LVLs, galvanised steel joinery, cork, linoleum and canvas to help hang and divide the space up. We also made a handbook for our team moving from the city to Richmond, where to eat, where to go, how to catch a train. And this is now something we actually give to all our new employees joining the practice. So on to the final project, and a light-filled and a welcoming studio as a glass shop front onto Swan Street. Moving inside, you get a sense of this volume and joy within the space. Canvas curtains sort of sit on the bottoms of trusses, so we can redefine spaces in an informal way. We've worked with we've curated and commissioned pieces of furniture. This is a coffee table by Claire Cousins. We've got artworks by local artists who we work with and collect. That's an Ian Strange painting on the wall. The original hardwood floor really became the impetus for the timber lining of our insertions. There's no plasterboard in this space. But you can see how our curtains can potentially reveal the main studio, but more often than not, we leave it open. You walk in and you see who we are and you see what we're doing. All the workstations that are described earlier are sort of wrapped in these galvanised clad sheets, and the curtains allow us to divide up some design spaces on the right-hand side, and you can see through to the mezzanine beyond. Inside the space, the polycarbonate lets us get filtered light from the west, but also gives us clues to the activities happening in the meeting rooms beyond. Joinery, none of it's fixed to the wall. All of this can be picked up and relocated. So again, if we're reassembling the space or relaying it out, that can all happen over time. Coming upstairs into the glass house, we really love this artwork by Lyndall Hargroves. It's a simple coat hanger, painted, stained and reassembled, and it's a bit like what the project and the work's about, taking a common object and slightly transforming it. Coming through to the mezzanine workspace, and here we can see our workstations. A lino green desktop referencing drawing boards from a bygone production era, cork lining to make it soft and acoustically generous, and then the connections and the views back to the main studio space as well, also a comp-cork floor as well, so it's a very soft, quiet space. Coming through to, from the glasshouse through the library, and you get glimpses and views back through some of our social spaces. Simple shelvings, off-the-shelf shelving systems supporting our books, and all the while the colours and the energy coming from those unpainted LVL beams. Coming through into the kitchen, the same idea about that industrial language continues, and that large photograph was put onto a sliding door, which then slides away and connects through to the loft space. A very simple meeting room. Morning teas and meetings are held in here. We tumble back downstairs, lockers on the left-hand side, and once you're down into the main floor, you get a view along the eastern wall with our breakout tables for informal meetings, design crits, presentations, etc., etc. And it really is about a space that can facilitate an enormous amount of activities, from morning teas through to International Women's Days functions, through to evening lectures, student collaborations, quiet space, collaborations with colleagues and social events. It's about a pulsating, vibrant space that can change and shift as we need it to, and that's been one of the joys and the delights of the space. But the final piece of the puzzle was the cafe, and we opened a little cafe recently, 345, which connects back into the office, but also out to the western laneway. We've used the same material palette from the rest of the office, but orange LVLs have been replaced by orange perspex. We almost thought about calling this place Aperol Spritz, but we settled on 345, a nod to our address, but also a Pythagorean triangle. And awnings help us come out there and occupy the laneway and animate the edges of the building, whilst we've also grown creepers up and down the facade as well. And then swinging back onto the laneway at the rear, we can see our northern facade, simple corrugated iron cladding, light and illumination, and beautifully illuminated garage doors. And the local graffiti artists, really excellent access to our blank canvas. And so, in conclusion, you know, we've created a really simple, vibrant home. It's a space that we love being in. It's a space that talks to its neighbourhood. It's a space that's sustainable and light-filled. It's a space where we announce our arrival referencing the historic colours that the practice has always used, but it's a car park, but could be something else. So in general, it's an office that we love, and it's a space that we've thoroughly enjoyed settling into. We moved in, COVID hit 1 month later, so it's a space that we haven't really been able to properly enjoy, and this last year is when it's really starting to take its shape and gain some real momentum and critical mass. That is